The 417 Gamers is a group of board, tabletop, and card gamers in the 417 area code. This is the podcast. Welcome to the 417 Gamer Podcast, episode 14, the one with game nights. In the 4, Andrea and I discussed the 4 games that we enjoyed from the month of October. There was a lot of games we played. What 4 games were we going to discuss? Stay tuned. In the 1, Greg Pohlman, Queencity Cardboard, stops by. We talk game nights. Setting it up, where to, how to, why not? And then in the 7, Greg stays on and we talk about 7 games in our game bag. It kind of sometimes morphs and moves around, but what 7 games are going to go into our game night bag right now? Without further ado, the 417 Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the 417 Gamer Podcast. My name is Rick.
And I'm Andrea.
In the 4, we discussed 4 games we enjoyed from the month of October. I'm going to kick us off on a game that I've been anticipating, and when it hit, I made sure I grabbed a copy of the game. It's the spiritual successor to the Red Cathedral. It's the same publisher, DeVere Games. It's the same designers. I don't remember. This is the White Castle. Very much like Red Cathedral, you're manipulating and dealing with dice. But you have a clan. You're trying to get your clan of peoples into the White Castle. The more people you have in there, the more points you're going to gain. It plays over 3 rounds. And in those 3 rounds, you're going one at a time, going to draft 3 dice. That's it. Each dice pertains to an action. But you could take an action that cascades into a bonus action. That cascades into a bonus action. That cascades into
a bonus action.
But you need the resources to pay for all those.
Yes.
I absolutely adore this game. We've played it at 2 twice now. Mm-hmm. We've played it at 3. I played it at 3 2 times. I'm enamored with this game. I don't know that I like it more than... yes, it's new and shiny. I like it better than Red Cathedral. Now, let it settle down here after the month. Am I still going to be as enamored as I am with Red Cathedral? Because we've had Red Cathedral now over a year.
Yeah. And we've played it several times.
We have.
We like it.
We like it quite a bit. I mean, it's one of those that It was, in the previous episode, Red Cathedral's in my game bag because it's a deeper game and it's a small box game that doesn't take up a lot of room. Mm-hmm. Red Cathedral is a smaller box as well. But when you start unfolding it and putting everybody else's pieces out there, it takes up a little table space. But absolutely enjoy the game. Really, really recommend it.
It goes by fast. It goes... Red Cathedral, you build an engine and you have time to build an engine. There is no real engine to be built in White Castle because you just need to get as many points as you can, as fast as you can, and then the game's over.
Feels like you're stacking up a house of cards and then they just keep on crumbling down. You go,
Yep.
But yeah, that is White Castle by DeVere Games. Andrea, a game that you played in the month of October.
It's another new game that we got. It's a card game called CuBirds.
That is published by Pandasaurus Games.
The art is super eye-catching. The birds are made of cubes, squares, rectangles, and you could just stare at them forever. You'd think, oh, those are dumb. But no, it's really adorable. And we've played it at we played it at 2-player, 3-pair, 4-pair. And it plays really well. It plays better at the bigger player counts. When we did it,
5 was too much.
Well, I didn't think so.
You didn't think so? Because we looked at that deck so many times.
We did. But I think it played better than at 2-player.
Now, my one quibble with the game is the cards started getting dinged up after the first and second game.
Yeah.
So we got sleeves for it.
It does need to be sleeved because if we're going to continue to play it quite a bit.
We're not big sleevers.
No, that's true. But the gameplay itself, you're collecting flocks of birds. It's a different mechanic than I've ever encountered in any other game, to where if you put down a bird, you have to put down all of the birds that you have. So there's no saving birds to build your flock in your hand. So you have to, in your head, like play a hand or two ahead, planning on what you're going to be picking up, not this time, but next time, because whatever you're putting down, you're not going to be able to save anything to. So that's interesting as well. So plus it's a little bit of, no, don't take those. You know, I need those. Oh, you took those. Yeah. So that's cute too. But it's quick. It's fairly easy to understand. I really enjoyed it.
Nice. The next game is Zoo Vadis. Ben in our group, he got Zoo Vadis, and he's asked me multiple times to play this game. It is a negotiation game, pure and simple. It's really good. It's not going to replace my negotiation game, but I get it. So in Zoo Vadis, everybody's playing as different zoo animals. Mm-hmm. And they're all trying to be they're trying to get onto the main stage, the best display. They want to be the top animal that everybody talks about. Yeah. To do that, because in a zoo, this is how you do it. One at a time, you can take one action, and that action could be place one of your animal characters in a pen. And the pins, you have to start them at the very back of the zoo. Or you can move the zookeeper around. Or you might be able to move the ostriches, which are NPCs, up. And if you move the ostriches up, you get, a point. Or you can start, if there's enough animals in the pen, you can start an auction, a negotiation. Basically, a vote. And whoever has the most votes will move their animal into the next pen. Now, every animal has a special power that can be traded off to other animals. You don't get to use your special power. You get to trade it for favors. So like the armadillos, they burrow and make tunnels, but they don't get to use their tunnels. Instead, they can bribe another animal to vote for them and let that animal then use their tunnel to get to a further pen. If you win the vote, you go along the dotted line to the next pen, and you get to take a point chip as you move over. The game ends once 7 different animal tokens move into the prime pen, and then all those point tokens that you've picked up either by moving the peacock, you picked up by moving your own animal to the pen, or negotiations, because you can trade away points to get a vote if you want. Not only that, if the peacock is in the pen and you're the active player, you can toss a number 2 chip or better to him to bribe him to vote for you. So if there's only 3 animals in the pen, you, the peacock, and let's say another player is the rhino. Mm-hmm. There's only 3 of you. You only need 2 to get by. So give the peacock, give him some points. He votes for you. You move on. Very fun. Enjoy the negotiation. But
not something you're going to pick up?
No, because I'm really, really wanting to play Chinatown. I'm probably going to take it, as of this recording, to our next night.
Nice.
The number 4 game that we're talking about, Andrea.
Point City.
Yeah.
Not Point Salad, Point City.
Take you down to the Point City.
It looks very much like the box for Point Salad. As a matter of fact, I went to grab one and grabbed the wrong one the other day.
You did.
But inside, completely different game. You are putting out a grid of 4x4 cards. You either have resources like energy or community that you're picking up to be able to buy buildings to put into your city. Some of the cards have a permanent resource on them, like a leaf that you can use to buy other cards. Much like in Splendor, where if you have bought a card, it becomes a permanent resource that you can use to buy other cards. It is, I don't know how to describe the player interaction, because there is some no negotiations or anything near the level that you were just talking about. And you're not taking stuff
from people, but it's very much that it's a drafting. You're drafting cards, and it's when you there's a grid of cards. It's a 4x4 grid. If you take a resource, what replaces it is a building. And if you take a building, what replaces it is a resource. So somebody may be looking at that grid going, oh, I've got two really good plays here. Mm-hmm. If they're close enough together, whoever takes cards before you may take enough cards to ruin both of your good plays.
Yes.
And you went from, oh, I got two sweet plays. Hopefully one of them will be left, to, I have no plays.
And there are bonus tokens that you can collect to score up for the end of game points. And that's another one where you can look over and see if someone's got a great big collection of community cards. There might be a bonus token that says, 2 points for every community card. It might be in your best interest to go ahead and snag that before they do.
Yep.
So, but I enjoy it quite a bit. It's more complicated than Point Salad. So I'd say it's slightly more than a lightweight game. It's light plus.
I like that. Light plus.
I wouldn't say it's a medium weight game, but I'd say it's light plus.
Nice. So those are the 4 games that we enjoyed from the month of October. In the next segment, I think we're going to have Greg Pohlman, a.k.a. Queencity Cardboard, come on, and we're going to talk about game nights. We'll see you on the next side.
Goodbye.
Hey listeners, we want you to be aware of Geekmas 2023. This is taking place at the Fairbanks Community Center at 1126 North Broadway, Springfield, Missouri, happening December 2nd and 3rd. Proceeds will go to the Drew Lewis Foundation. There'll be holiday-themed contests, gaming, vendors, comics, raffles, so much more. It is free to get into the venue, but they'll have raffle tickets, and if you're still looking for a vendor table, go over and talk with Geekmas and see if they had any more available. But the proceeds go to benefit the Drew Lewis Foundation. Geekmas 2023, go out there and have a good time! The one on the 417Gamers is our topic of the week, or the topic of the month. This topic of the month, we're talking about game nights. Greg, you run some game nights. I've organized and run some game nights. So, where are your favorite places if you're going to organize a game night? Where are some places to look for?
Places to look for are public spaces that have plenty of seating that it's okay if things get a little bit rowdy from time to time. I host at a couple of breweries in town, but I've also hosted game nights on behalf of Game Expo back when they were active, and hosting games at other conventions.
For me, table space is one of the big things. We've been to some little coffee shops, and man, if all you can play is just a hand of cards, I want to be able to have your food, if I'm at your establishment, and a little space to play games. It doesn't have to be Arc Nova. It doesn't have to take up a 4x6 table. But I would like at least a 3x3 space to play while I have my food off to the side from that.
Yeah.
And that also depends on how many people you're expecting, which is another thing I've learned. You can't rely on X number of people coming. I've usually got my friend David with me on the brewery game nights, but even that falls through sometimes. And so I can reliably have 1 or 2 people show up, sometimes half a dozen or more people show up, and so your table space will vary wildly. Sometimes it just goes through a series of 2-player games, in which case, you even at a small table, you've got room for your food and drink, or it can cover, we've had to take multiple tables and set them side by side, so that we could play a round of Tiny Towns or something.
Yeah. And some of those tables push together better than others.
Yep.
Lighting. Being able to read your cards if you have text, or rules question, because I know a good chunk of my games, but I also don't know every tiny little if it ties, what happens this, when, where, why, how, and why is one person wrong and the other person's right. And you better be able to point to it, because not everybody, but you do tend to, when somebody asks a question, about 1 out of 10, you have the rules lawyer that wants to know where it says that in the rule book. I get it. We're all there, Everybody hates to be wrong. So where they thought they were right playing the thing, they're like, come on, come on, prove me right. So lighting is key. Friendly environment, friendly staff.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, we've been to quite a few places. I know you have too, where a nice waitress, a nice waiter, front of house, or even if the manager pops by and says, hi, hello, thanks for coming out, goes a long way from somebody that just sits up at the counter. You go get your beers, they take they put your card on your tab, they say nothing to you, give you your beer, and you go back to your table, and you're like, I could go a lot of places and be treated just as crappily.
You're building community, basically. It's not just environment, it's feeling like you're part of something bigger, not just yourself and the handful of people you're playing with, but like you said, the staff and just this is the 417 Gamers. Yeah. It's not just a bunch of schlubs who meet up here or there every
Sometimes
Thursday
we're
or every
schlubby.
And that's fine as long as you're having a good time and as long as there's that sense of camaraderie and the right location and the right vibe really produces that and brings it out.
Yeah. Some non-messy food options.
Yeah.
Going to a chili place or a wing place, probably not the best place. Great, you sleeved your cards, but you don't also need to put teriyaki on them.
And that's no guarantee. I've had people get Dorito dust inside the sleeves of my Magic cards.
Wow.
It is insufferable.
Yeah.
I also think that noise level plays a part too. If you're in a sports bar and it's, a playoff game, probably not a good choice.
Yes.
Acoustics for sure.
Yeah.
The more open a place is, even size isn't a guarantee, although it does tend to be a little bit better. But like at Holdfast, they've got those. They're not bay windows, but the fire station doors that just go all the way up.
Yeah.
That lets a lot of sound go out. Mm-hmm. If it's not a music night, because the music tends to just blast.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. But if it's just a casual night, you've got TVs here, and here along this wall, and the rest, it's just conversation or people reading books. Mm-hmm. And that's also true at a few tea shops that I've been to.
Yeah.
They've got good acoustics, but you can also find a corner where it can just be you and one, maybe two or three other people, and it's cozy.
Ways to advertise your group or your game night.
Word of mouth, it cannot be understated. I'm on a limited amount of platforms because I just don't have the time or the energy to manage Facebook, Twitter, Insta, whatever the 3 or 4 or 5 new ones exist that I don't
next year.
That I don't know about because I'm old and I have other things to do. I'm not even on TikTok. But I do know people in the community, and I'll talk about, if I'm not having a super introvert day, I will talk up my game whenever I can, and I'll use the games themselves as props to do that. I'll break out Rolling Realms and just play a solo game, and if somebody walks by and even turns their head or cocks their head, I'll go, oh, hey, have you heard about this, or are you interested? I work at Expedia, and lately I've taken to, on my lunch breaks, I'll pick up a 2-player game and a book, and I'll just sit there for my lunch break and have the game. This month it's been Boop, the Halloween edition.
Yeah.
And I
need a copy.
And I've gotten a couple of takers on that. I think Village Meeple still has a couple.
Nice. We might have to beat there.
But yeah, just sit there and have it on display. It's got a good presence. It's got kittens. Who doesn't love kittens?
Well, yeah.
And if it works, it works. And if nobody sits down and plays, I at least get a few interested glances, and it's a conversation piece.
Use your social media, so whatever platforms you're on. I don't think that you really need to go crazy unless that's just absolutely what you're doing. If you're bound and determined that you want to build your game night into a game group, then sure, use as many free avenues as you have. Talk to your local friendly game store. You don't have to do the game night there, but a lot of them have message boards. See if you can post to their message board, and see if they potentially have their own business card or a flyer they might want to bring with you. You start a rapport with them, you might be able to get them to help you with prize support. Not all, and not a lot of times, but if you do it enough, you become friendly with them. Because I know we have friendly local game stores that do game nights at various bars, breweries, and restaurants. Metagames does a magic night at Everyday Tie. We had...
yeah, apparently the owner of that's a huge Magic fan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, there's some game nights that go down at 4x4 Brewery and stuff like that. And sometimes just their word of mouth where... If you can print you up some cheap flyers and put them at their sales counter, advertising for your game nights, that helps. But yes, if you're on Facebook, use it. If you're on Instagram, Twitter, use it. And if you can, join some of the groups in Facebook, in Instagram that are your hobby specific. There's the board game group. There's BGG. There's Dice Tower groups that have thousands of people.
The 417 Hub Discord server has a dedicated tabletop gaming thread.
Does it?
Yes, it does.
I'm not on the Discord, so
I can send you a link if you like.
But yeah, that would be nice.
Actually, I think you can just go to 417hub.com and it will take you to a Discord link.
Okay, sounds good. Some warnings. What warnings would you give people that are wanting to run their own game night?
Don't get your hopes up. It's going to be a rough start. Unless you're already popular, unless you already have a following, you're going to have a couple months, maybe several months where nobody shows up. I've had game nights where it was just me and David, and we played, and we still have a blast because we're good friends, but we'll play Onitama, and then we'll play Bites, and then we'll play... any other, whatever he's got in his bag, whatever I've got in my bag, and we'll just have fun for the night.
Yeah.
Sometimes a bunch of people will show up. That's pretty rare, but I'm there. That's the other thing I would say. Don't make it about you. This is not an ego trip. This is an opportunity to share the culture, to share the joy of gaming. Gaming is on my Instagram bio. There's no, this is who I am, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's 6 words. Play to learn, play to live.
Yeah.
Because I believe that. Because it's an opportunity to learn about yourself. It's an opportunity to learn skills.
Yeah.
Whether that is risk management, whether that's bluffing or reading someone who's bluffing you in Werewolf. And making it about showing somebody else a good time and enhancing somebody else's experience means that even if it's one person, when that one person comes along and expresses interest, you are there for them.
Yeah.
I would say consistency. Like you just had many nights where either no people showed up or very few people showed up.
Yeah.
Or people didn't even maybe understand the really easiest games that you brought out. Where you felt like you had to smack them over the head with the game board. But... be patient, be consistent, be there through the game night. Now, I will say, if you are at a game night and you had scheduled it for 3 hours, if you're 2 hours in, I feel like after 2 hours you can pull the ripcord. But you need to be there at least the first hour and a half.
Oh, for
a
sure.
lot of people get off at different times. A lot of people have to take the kiddos, pick the kiddos up, feed, take showers. Give them time because... what time you got there is not what other times other people potentially get out there.
Sure.
Especially if you have an event set up on Facebook or somewhere else and you have people showing that they are coming. You got nobody coming and nobody's showing up in an hour and a half into your event. Up to you. You can pull the ripcord, I feel like.
Yeah, I did my first game night at Wire Road. I just got that started earlier this month. And... there was a little bit of last-minute preparations. I didn't know they were going to put me outside. Apparently, they just finished building a second performance stage. And so I was there, and they were like, okay, here's all these basically picnic tables and metal chairs in circles for people to crowd around and talk over. And, okay, I have this space, I'm going to use the space. So I've spread out my games, prop them up, make them look pretty, make them things that people will notice as they're walking by. Not like this game, try not to make it look like this table is reserved for this game, because some people will sit down. I had Railroad Inc. set up at one tall table, and people sat down, they're like, ooh, what's this? And then they set it aside and just talk. And that's fine. I don't want to put pressure on anybody to participate or like, no, this is what this space is for. But make it inviting. My table, maybe one other table, but I don't want to...
I get it if they push it off the side and play, but I'm a little more forceful. Not forceful, but I will
invite them. I will say, are you interested in this?
I'm more of an extrovert. My family do not know strangers. They will go up and talk to just about anybody. And I have enough of that in me. And my mom's side are the introverts. So I can't exhaust my extrovert toward then I'm just done with people. And at that point, I'm done. I just want to go home. I want to watch the TVs or whatever new Loki episode's on, and that's all I'm going to do. But while I have my dad's side, the Bagwell side, like, I'm ready to engage and, like, yeah, I don't know if I want to play that game. Come on, sit down, blah, 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 blah. That's part of why I like Bohnanza, too. Because I get to get almost all of it out in one game, and then I'm like, and I'm done.
But maintaining a casual but inviting atmosphere, I think that works out in the long run.
Yeah. Especially
in a brewery game night where most of the people who are in attendance have no idea who I am. They're not hardcore gamers. They're not even casual gamers. They're people who showed up to a place to drink and listen to music and have a good time. And if something catches their eye, I will be more than happy to use that as an in to say, oh, are you interested in that? Let me tell you a little bit about that. And I only got one game played by people who weren't me on that night. I got a 3-player game of Cat in the Box going because it's got spades mechanics. So if you know spades, you know 80% of the game already.
Yeah.
But they had a good time. And it sounds like they might show up next month. And it was a good experience.
Nice.
And just take the wins where you can get them and let that be the thing that drives you to the next event.
Yeah.
If you do an event at a place that serves food and you're bringing your games, bring games that you're willing to get messed up. If you've got a brand new Kickstarter that was your $250, $500 baby, I know it's your new shiny, but you might leave that at home. Most of the games... In all my collection, there's very few games that are irreplaceable. There are some games, because of their cost, or because of I don't want to have to replace them, I would probably frown upon bringing them out to a food establishment, maybe. And definitely some because of the table presence, because they take up way too much table to even play. But accidents happen. And you also can't control chaos in some restaurants.
Yeah.
You're gonna have jerks, you're gonna have dips, you're gonna have morons that do a thing that could cascade into your tables, knock over a drink, your pieces go on the floor, what have you. Look at your game bag when you're taking it out. If there's a game that you look in there and say, man, if I don't have that tomorrow, I'm gonna be PO'd. Don't take it out. Don't bring it out. Just leave it at home.
Yeah.
And I'll bring games that I know for a fact aren't going to get played just for the presence, just for their size and scope, thinking that people might express interest in them in passing. If I'm going to a brewery night, I'll have a game or two that are beer or liquor themed. I'll bring distilled with me sometime, even though I know nobody's going to sit down to learn, to sit down for 2 hours to learn how to play distilled. Or if I'm going to play in the park, I'll bring Cascadia or Wingspan.
That one I get. The distilled for me is a bit much, just for my taste. We really like the game, but maybe I bring it out to a brewery. I don't know. Now we just now have acquired it. I probably want to play our copy a time or two before I could be like, all right, it can get messed up. But
if you've got other gamers who already know the lingo and I don't want to say hardcore gamers, but people who have played other mainstream modern titles.
Yeah.
Someone who's never played a modern board game before, the kind of people who I target at these game nights would not be interested in learning that game. I'll tell them about the theme and impress on them they're not all just rolling dice and doing ungodly amounts of math. They can be that, but there's also themes that are well reinforced in some of these games that make it feel like you're accomplishing something and not just making numbers happen.
Right.
I will say that your attendance feedback is very valuable. So if they didn't care for the restaurant, didn't like the staff, pay attention to that. At the same time, if it's a one-time person, listen to it, but don't make drastic turns on one person. Mm-hmm. If we've had some to where somebody had an off comment to be said about maybe a waiter didn't bring something on time and they were mad and they just bad talk that waiter. And I was like, man, maybe this isn't the best place. And now I'm thinking about it the rest of the night. And it kind of colored my view of that night. So then I started asking other people. And then everybody else had an okay time or even a good time. Mm-hmm. But at that point, if you have people that are coming out there consistently, at least their second or third time, and they have problems with the place facilities, then maybe think about changing. But if it's a one-time comment, table it in your head, maybe think about it, and if you see it again, I would either make a comment to staff, or then you maybe think about another place. Do not be afraid to pull the ripcord on the location you're at. If it's not a good location, then it's not going to help you. It's going to be reflective on the places you're choosing to have your event.
Yeah. I've had to do that once, and it was nothing in particular to do with the staff. It just wasn't working out. I wasn't getting any traction, and it got to the point where it was physically and kind of emotionally taxing, because when you sit there for 2 or 3 hours doing nothing, you can't help but wonder, why am I even here? Why am I doing this in the first place? So making that decision is hard, but it is worth it in the long run. Mm-hmm. Have a gimmick, especially if you're trying to induct new people from outside the hobby into it. Try a gimmick and work with the venue to promote that. Tweedle, who runs, I think she runs the social media for Holdfast Brewing, will at me when they post in preparation for their puzzle and game night. Mm-hmm. And in this last month's case, board game and Yahtzee tournament night. Nice. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, get the venue in on it and let them know what you are offering to people who are participating. For the last several months, and I intend to do this until the end of this year, I've been having a featured game of the month, and I wasn't trying particularly hard to do a theme or anything. Just, hey, this is a game I think is cool. You might like it too. It's easy to learn, and whoever gets first place, the first time I can get a group of people around this game, the first person who wins it who isn't me, I'll buy them a beer.
Nice.
I haven't gotten a huge lot of traction for that. You'd think that bribing people with beer would be an easy way to get butts in seats, but I've had a few takers, but not as many as I'd like, so I'm going to change it up. And that's another thing, don't be afraid to kill your darlings. If something's not working, change it.
Yeah.
Life, play to learn, play to live. Again, life is a series of decisions, just like a game is a series of decisions, and if your decisions aren't working out for you, change your strategy. So next year, I think I'm going to try doing theme months. Come up with a mechanical theme that ties into some element of the month or the season. Mm-hmm. Like, I just had a thought while we were talking about next October, do trick-taking or treat, and then have a bunch of just do games that are trick-taking, and have that be the theme, and then if especially since so many classic games are trick-taking, like Spades and Hearts and that should be an easy thing to get traction around. So that's what I'm going to try, because the last thing didn't work. Maybe this next thing won't work. If it doesn't, I'll do something else.
Maybe like Love Letters in February, where it's different versions of Love Letter.
Oh, I like that. I was going to do cooperative games, but Love Letter's good too.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great ideas.
Also, you might think about your local community centers, your local libraries, for different places to game. I'm not religious, but I know your local church. A lot of times they have rooms that they're more than willing to loan out to you as long as you know your congregation to have a game night or a game day. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely different places to have your games. I love my friendly local game store, but I know not everybody is lucky to have that. Either they may just have a few box stores and have to order their games online and and just get what the box store has. My uncle down in Bentonville, Arkansas, he games at an Arby's. The Arby's remodeled. He's like, they put in these really nice tables. They were big enough to have Ticket to Ride style games on. Yeah. He's like, and nobody's there. So he's like, I guess on Tuesdays they go there. They each get a value meal and they play for a couple hours and then they go home. Yeah, and as long as you're making it worth the venue's time and aren't making a mess of the place, then you could host something like that just about anywhere.
Yeah.
I think a couple times they've closed down the store that I don't know that the staff was the happiest about. But, be friendly with the staff. Communicate with the staff. Also, you might find out what works in your schedule and theirs. What's a slow night for them? Mm-hmm. If it's a Monday, Tuesday, if it's a regular restaurant, they don't have TVs. Monday night football, a lot of people go to those restaurants that do have the TVs. Yeah. Monday tends to be a very slow night for restaurants. Mm-hmm. So if you can make your game night, pull some of your game night friends with you to stage a game night and see if you can grow around that. Mm-hmm. They may even help you advertise for that.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I settled on Wednesday nights for my brewery nights. Yeah. Because it's in the middle of the week. Thursday, Friday, anytime Friday forward, obviously, is going to be heavy. But early to midweek, they will happily work with you to make something happen. And I've also talked to people within our community who are like, why is it on Wednesdays? I have other things going on Wednesdays. But there are events going on at other spaces. I know you've got the Metagames is doing the things at 4x4. And of course, there's always the Metagames board game night on Thursdays, which is another thing. Work within your community and talk to people to be like, oh, this isn't working for you. I'm so sorry. I know people who are doing things here, here, and here on this night, that night, and the other night.
Yeah.
Build that network, because a rising tide raises all ships.
Yep.
I believe so. Well, I think we've waxed poetic quite a bit on game nights. So, with having a game night, you need to have games in the bag. Mm-hmm. So maybe for the 7, why don't we look at what 7 games you'd put in your bag? We'll go on to the next segment. You are listening to the 417Gamer podcast. Want a game in the 417 area? Well, follow the group on Facebook at 417Gamers. Click on the sign up tab. It'll take you to the group. Come out, play some games. Also, follow them on Meetup at meetup.com/417Gamers. Come out, play some games in the 417. The 7 in the 417 Gamer is usually top 7 or 7 in a given category. 417. This list, going on with our topic of the week, is 7 games in your bag. If you're going out to a game night, organizing, or whatever, what have you, what's 7 games in your bag? Could be 7 games in your bag currently, or the 7 games you're going to shove into your game bag before you leave. Andrea, let's start with your number 1.
Well, the games that I chose were for more than one reason. Mm-hmm. One, I need to be able to teach them. I'm not going to take a game I don't know well enough to teach. Second of all, usually when we go to game nights, we invite new people out every week. So I try and always have something a lighter weight. Doesn't have to be beginner level, but something, light to midweight that people can understand fairly quickly without feeling like they're in over their head. So I start with Splendor. Splendor is a game that...
The standard Splendor?
I love Splendor Marvel more than anything.
Yep.
And we took Splendor Marvel to a small local convention, OzCon in West Plains, and we had a girl come up, didn't know anything about games, but she saw that game and saw the player mat and was like, what's that? And we, told her about the Infinity Stones and stuff. She's like, will you teach me? And we're like, yes, of course. So it took a little while to teach her because she'd never played regular Splendor before, but she sure enjoyed it.
So is it Splendor or Splendor Marvel?
I'm going to take Splendor Marvel.
All right. Mr. Greg, your number one, or just the first game in your bag?
First game in my bag, it's a rough one to get on the table, but My Father's Work. I backed the Kickstarter, and even though it has app support, it's a very mediocre game without the app, but with it adds the narrative, it adds all kinds of story elements, it can go so many different ways, and as someone who's not just a board gamer, but a tabletop role player, I love that ability to just tell the story. In fact, I'll make mechanically, shall we say, inefficient decisions just to see what happens as the story progresses.
Yes, I love playing with the mechanics. So, we talked in the previous, we do different game nights. We do some that are going to be more newbie-centric, but we also have a reoccurring game nights where we've built up some heavier gamers. So, my game bag is kind of reflective of, in a given week, we can go to 4 different gaming events. And I don't necessarily want to switch up my bag a whole lot. So, I've got different things. Number one is going to be Beacon Patrol. That is our filler, our co-op, and I'm not a big solo gamer, but it is a game I can gladly play by myself. If I'm the only one at a family-friendly or a newbie-friendly event, let's say we're going out to a brew pub, we're going out to a library, and I get there 10, 15 minutes early, I got time to I've already unloaded the games, if I brought signage, great, but it gives me something to do and to get myself into the spirit of gaming and also put something on the table. It has a nice little presence. Yeah. So Beacon Patrol. Greg, you're number 2.
My number 2 is Sagrada. It's an old favorite, and I love games. I'm not much of a direct competition player. I like to solve a puzzle, build an engine, things like that. And the artistic theme is beautiful. It's well presented, and I have most of the expansions for it. So, and it's, like you said, presence is a huge thing, and it's
beautiful.
Yeah, and it's fairly easy to teach people. The only thing that I tend to have trouble with is reminding people that you can't put the same number or color next to itself, but especially when I'm teaching, I'm more than willing to make that mistake on purpose just to demonstrate a point.
And I know some people compare that to Role Player, and I will say I think Sagrada plays quick enough to where if everybody wants to, I would play it again. And so if people did miss that number adjacency rule or the color adjacency rule, I'd have no problem pulling it back out, playing again. Role Player is just a little bit long, and once we got done with Role Player, I don't know that I want to go back to it again.
And with all the items and equipment rules and such, I haven't even played with the expansions for that one, but that could drag things out. With Sagrada, you've just got the tools, and that's about it.
Yeah. My number 2 is the game. This is published now by Pandasaurus Games. This is a cooperative game. You have 4 piles that you get to play to. 2 piles are going up from 1 to 100, and 2 are going down from 99 to 0. You have a deck of cards going 1 to 99. Everybody has a hand. On your turn, you must play at least 2. And then you can play more. And then you fill your hand back up. The idea is you're trying to run out the full deck. But it's really tough, especially, I don't know. I think the lesser players was a little bit easier. But this plays, I think, 5. It's either 4 or 5. The mind either plays 4 or 5, and the other one plays 4. I can't remember which. I like them both, but I prefer the game. I think it's a little bit easier to teach, and I think there's more of a game to it. The game. Andrea, you're number 2.
My number 2 is Azul, the classic original. Like Sagrada, it's kind of pretty to look at. And I like the feel of the tiles in your hand. That's something, and it's something that's easy to explain to a new player. I think that it has a very classic where if you've been gaming at all, you already know how to play it. So it might be a great filler game. It's like, oh, we can squeeze in a game of Azul before we start, viticulture or something.
Yeah. Greg, you're number 3?
Number 3 is Rolling Realms. It's got a higher player count than average. Most games are 4, maybe 5. Rolling Realms goes up to 6. It's also got a really good solo mode. So if I'm at the pub or at a game night or something and I want to get attention, I'll just play solo mode. It's got that 18-hole mini golf conceit, so there's a lot of variety to plumb through.
Nice.
And I love Stonemaier games generally, and having basically miniature, micro even versions of each of those games, like Wingspan and Tapestry and so on, just makes me
get
out
with little packs, little expansion packs
for the new games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Andrea, you're number 3?
Mine is Bohnanza, the bean game. We actually participated in a Bohnanza tournament at Geekway. With it being an older game, I was surprised to see it on one of their tournament lists. But it was actually surprisingly fun. And we even had people in the tournament that had never played it before. Yeah. But the teach was so quick and easy, and it's easy to catch on to, that everyone had a really good time. And even some younger kids played, like 9, 10. So it was nice.
Nice. Number 3 for me is Tiny Towns. This is published by Alderac Games. Absolutely love this game. Plays up to 6. Even when it's not technically your turn, you're still playing. Tiny Towns, everybody's building up their town. One person declares a material, whether it be wood, glass, brick, stone, or straw. You declare it, and everybody has to put that somewhere in their 4x4 grid. Hopefully you get the materials in a certain configuration to build a building, but at a certain point, you have your board filled up and you're out. The people that are best at that spatial reasoning will do well, and those that aren't will be out of the game quick enough to where it won't really matter. But it's also, play it with enough, unless you're playing with the same people over and over and the same cards, it's going to be a different game every time. Because you have, I think it's 7 different building types. And out of those buildings, you shuffle up the cards, and each time the buildings are going to score differently. So one time it might be the red buildings might be farms, or they might be greenhouses, or they might be something else. One time yellow buildings might be a theater, they might be an inn, they might be something else. But it changes, points change. I really enjoy that.
And that one goes pretty quick, too. I played that, I think, 3 times back to back to back with the same group. Yeah. And on a 4x4 grid, it doesn't take too long to knock it out.
And I need to play the Citizens expansion, because I didn't care for the Fortune.
So that's another one where I haven't played any of the expansions, but I've heard they're good.
Yeah. Andrea, you're number 4.
My number 4 is Savannah Park. It is a tile-laying game where you're building an animal park. You've got some fires in your park that your animals will run away from. If there is if there's a 2 fire, you can't put a 2 animal by it. So it's kind of that puzzle that you were talking about earlier, Greg. It's not so complicated that newbies can't understand, but even when we played with experienced players, because there's that puzzle aspect that even if you play it back to back, you're still wondering, could I have done that better in a better configuration to have gotten more points? So it fills in a lot of audience. So I like it for that reason.
My number 4 is going to be kind of this is the deeper game. This is some of the game nights we're going to go out to that we know our friends are going to come out. It's going to be something that's going to have a little more teeth to it. It's still not necessarily going to be your Terraforming Mars, Ark Nova 2-3 hour game. This is Red Cathedral. This is by DeVere Games. Absolutely love it. It's got a small box, so you can put it in a small game bag or you can put it in the big game bag. It's not going to take up a lot of room, but there's a lot of meat to this game. In Red Cathedral, you and your opponents are building the Red Cathedrals. You're going to be claiming different spots in the cathedral that you're going to build. You're going to ship materials, and you're going to gather the resources to build the things. At the end of the game, once somebody's built all 6 sections that they have claimed they're going to build, the game ends, and whoever has the most points wins. Every time I play this, I'm a little more enamored with it. I want to see the different ideas and strategies on when to ship, when to sacrifice some points for some monies, because I don't do that enough, I don't think. I think losing points to get money sometimes, I'm like, I don't want to lose points, but man, there's been probably a couple times that I could have used the money to get some better stuffs.
Yeah.
But that's Red Cathedral at number 4. Greg, your number 4.
My number 4 is Wingspan. Stonemeyer hits it out of the park. I do have a couple of the expansions for Wingspan, and I like the engine building. I like figuring out what I can afford with the resources I have and agonizing over every decision. But I also don't have to take it too seriously because you're building a portfolio of bird photographs. And you've got the 4 actions. You either put a bird into your portfolio or gain food, gain eggs, gain more bird cards, and just keep building and trying to achieve those secondary objectives over the course of however many, like 4 rounds. And all the bird cards have fun facts about them at the bottom. I love anytime a game manages to shoehorn education into it. I find gaming in general to be a very educational and introspective opportunity.
Yeah. And it's another...
Beth Sobel's art.
Yes. It looks like the Audubon Society, the game.
It does. Yeah, and it's one of those, if I'm walking by and someone's looking for another player, I'm in.
Her art, it just sings as long as it's in that natural theme. In fact, the game that almost, if I'd never heard of Wingspan, the game that would have taken that slot was Cascadia.
Oh, that was really good too.
Yes.
Number 5 for me is going to be Scout. Scout is a trick-taking game from Oink Games. When it's themed as a circus, although the theme is absolutely just kind of pasted on there, cutesy. On your turn, well, when you start the game, you could get your hands of cards. And they have numbers on tops and bottoms. They're different numbers. You cannot reorder your hand, but you can choose to completely flip your hand from right side up to upside down. But once you've done that, you're stuck with the way it is. On your turn, you can either Scout, which is taking cards from a previously played set, or Run, put it in your hand, or you can Show, which is playing cards. You can play a Run, or you can play a set, but they must be adjacent cards in your hand, and if they're a Run, they must be in the order. So if you played 4, 5, 6, 7, they must be in that order, backwards or forwards. They can't be 4, 7, 6, 5. Once you play, everybody else, if they can play better than what you do, they take your cards as points in the trick. If they cannot, then they Scout. Or the third choice is you can, once per hand, you can Scout and Show. Take a card from the current displayed showing, put it in your hand, and then you show better and take those points. If anybody Scouts from you, from a hand that you played, you get a point for that as well. When the hand ends, any cards in your hand, as long as you weren't the one that went out, count against you 1 point apiece. Every trick and every Scout dollar you got are a point. You play this, I think in a 5-player game, everybody deals once. In a 4-player game, deals once. I don't... Have we played it 3?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think it's basically one... Either everybody deals once, and maybe 3, everybody deals twice. Regardless, it's got that trick-taking that a lot of older gamers understand, and it has that puzzle in your head on how do I make these cards work for me? Because there's a lot of times you're going to get a hand of crap.
It's true.
But it's got that hand management that some people just love to play. And that is Scout from Oink Games. Andrea, your number 5.
Point Salad. It has a fairly small box. It's easy to fit in pretty much any game bag. It is very player friendly. The rules aren't terribly complicated. And it plays really quickly. 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Roughly. It's a great filler game to have. And every time we end up playing it, everybody has a good time. So I think it's a great filler that everybody should have on hand.
I agree. Greg, your number 5?
My number 5 is Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Yeah.
The ultimate press your luck game. The first, when I heard of it, I thought it would bore the hell out of me. I went to a game night back when Caleb Stokes and Spencer Harris used to host at Best of Luck Beer Hall. And I watched it and I was like, okay, I don't see what the big deal is. Then I sat down and played it. Every single time you pull, you get that tension arc where you hold your breath and there's either agony or ecstasy. There is nowhere in between. And even if you bomb, you get to just sit back and watch your opponents agonize over every decision. And, do I, don't I?
You always do.
I got my parents to buy their own copy of that game. I even got them to buy upgrades, 3D printed, like weighted tokens for the game. And good thing they did, because that was like less than a year before COVID lockdown. And my parents didn't have any cats at that point. So they just had that game on their table, and that was what they did during lockdown when they couldn't go anywhere. They just, among other things, obviously, but they played Quacks over and over and over again. They just loved it.
Nice. That brings us to number 6. This is a crossover between me and Andrea. This is Bohnanza. I love Bohnanza. I'm loud and shouty. This is a negotiation game. You're bean farming, which is such a great theme. It's not, but I don't. They've tried to retheme it, but I refuse to play it under any other theme. Bohnanza, you have 2 plots of land on your turn. You must plant your first bean. You may plant your second bean. If you are to plant a bean, and it will not go on any of the fields because you can only put one type of bean in each field. That's farming. That's just law. You must uproot a field. If you have a multiple and a single, the multiple beans has to get uprooted before the single. Whenever you uproot, you can uproot by your choice too. Whenever you uproot, if you have enough beans to make coins, you look at the bottom of the bean. It tells you how many beans to make 1, 2, 3, or 4 coins. Take the beans that would be coins, flip them upside down. They have a gold coin on the back. Now you got some monies. You play through the deck 3 times. At the end of the game, at the end of 3 decks, whoever has the most money wins. It's negotiation. It's luck of the draw. It's tons of... It's sometimes like light stabs in the back. Like, oh yeah, I'll help you out next round. And like next round, you're like, he gave me a way better deal. I know I told you it was going to happen. He's giving me 3 beans for 1. I can't pass that up. But I love getting people involved. And I absolutely understand where Bohnanza can fall flat. But I don't think I've ever had, personally, a bad game of Bohnanza.
Yeah.
That was my 6. Let's go to Greg, your number 6.
My number 6 is Jabba's Lair. I think that's the name of it. The love letter version.
Jabba's Palace.
Jabba's Palace. Yeah, I've played a few different versions of Love Letter. It's quick, it's easy to teach, and this one in particular has the Star Wars theme, so there's plenty of people who are eager to get involved with that. I take that with me out all the time, and I'll just set it up against whatever book I'm reading and watch people go, thing in Star Wars bag? What's that? And, hand size of 1, draw a card, discard a card, do whatever it says. The game practically teaches itself.
Yeah. It does.
Andrea, your number 6?
Kingdomino. I like the tile placement aspect of it. It's pretty eye-catching. It's not terribly complicated. You're trying to match up, different land types to get points. It's a fairly easy teach, so you don't have to worry about that. And it's another one that doesn't take terribly long, but it's interesting enough that even if you're an experienced gamer, you could still enjoy the gameplay of it.
I think so. That brings us to number 7. I'm going to start off. Number 7 is Ultimate One Night Werewolf. I wanted to party a game on this, and it's... Party games, because by their design have very few mechanics, they burn out. And that's why I have a whole bunch of them. And originally in the game group, I was kind of known as the party gamer, but that was because I was going through so many. You play 2 or 3 straight game nights of a party game, you get tired of it, and you buy the next one. Mm-hmm. And then now I've got like 30 party games, and I just kind of cycle them through. Yeah. Right now, it's back in the bag is One Night Ultimate Werewolf. So Big Werewolf, Ultimate Werewolf, is multiple nights, and you need a moderator to go through and do your day and night cycles, and you have werewolves killing villagers, and in the daytime, everybody's trying to lynch one another. Mm. In Ultimate One Night, you have one night where everybody closes their eyes, and everybody will get to do their roles one at a time. The werewolves will kill werewolves. The seer will get to look at one person's role, or there are 3 NPCs in the center of the table. They can look at 2 of those. Mm-hmm. You'll have the troublemaker that'll swap 2 people's pieces. You'll have the robber that'll steal a roll. You'll have the insomniac that can't sleep, so they'll look at their card one more time. You have the tanner who wants to die. You have the minions who are with the werewolves. Then you have tons of expansions, standalone expansions. You have One Night Alien. You have One Night Vampire. You have One Night Werewolf Daybreak. I think the base game is perfectly fine by itself, and there's 10 roles and then 3 villagers, so you got 13 cards. You could play a small, regular game of Werewolf if you've moderated it before.
Sure.
But One Night Werewolf is my number 7. Andrea, your number 7?
Dixit. It's a pretty game. There's some really interesting art. You're trying to guess what the active player meant by a certain word or phrase with artwork pieces that you have in your hand on cards. It's super interesting to play with people that you don't know, because if you're playing with people you do know, you're like, if someone says something like Harry Potter, you're like, oh, I know what you mean there. Yeah. But when I tried to play with your parents one time, and they just said the weirdest things, and I had no idea at all what they were talking about. But it's still interesting. It's an easy teach. Anybody can play it. The fundamentals of it are quick to pick up on. I think it's something that it's small enough you can throw in the bag, but interesting enough it's very different from a lot of other board games. So I think if you had been playing games all day, playing Terraforming Mars, Ark Nova, playing a little Dixit makes your mind work in a different way.
Yep. It plays really well for the newbies, and it plays as a great palate cleanser or icebreaker for a game night. Dixit's a great pick.
Yeah.
Greg, number 7, the final game from this list.
Well, Andrea, it's really interesting that you picked Dixit, because my 7th, I had to get a co-op game in there because I love cooperative games. I love helping people and bringing people together for common cause, and I picked Mysterium as mine. Same publisher, even same size and kind of style of cards, so you could, in theory, interchange the cards between the 2 games, or supplement if you get bored with the same artwork over and over again. But one player is the ghost. They've been murdered. All the other players are psychics who are getting dreams via these abstractly illustrated cards that the ghost hands out to each player to give them hints as to who done it, where they done it, and with what weapon. Kind of Clue-esque in that regard.
Yeah.
But each investigator has their own theory that they're trying to figure out. Each one has their own killer, their own weapon, their own location, and then if everybody finishes all their objectives, then there's one final round where the ghost decides which of the investigators' theories is the correct one, and does one final round of guessing on the table, and the investigators collectively have just those few cards to figure out which of their theories is correct. And I love it because it's interesting to see how people react to different illustrations, what details they pick apart and will build theories around. It's a fun way to see how people think. And as the ghost, you can't communicate verbally at all. You just give them the illustrations, and just it's fun for me to just glare over my little GM screen and go, "Oh, is that how you're doing that? Okay, let's see how this goes."
Oh, I stone face them. Yeah. I stone face when I play that game. Just like, so is that what you meant?
One way to find out.
Yeah.
It also, I think it avoids, there's probably a formal term for this in game theory, but I call it the pandemic problem, where one person tends to, even though people are theoretically working together, one person, usually the owner of the game or whoever's played it the longest, tends to make decisions on behalf of the group.
Oh, quarterbacking, I'm bad at it sometimes.
Quarterbacking, okay, yeah. But since each player has their own theory to pursue, and ultimately nobody knows what's going on in the ghost's head necessarily, it mitigates that to a pretty good degree.
Yeah, we hadn't played Beacon Patrol 4-player before. Andrea and I are really good at bouncing ideas off each other when we're playing Beacon Patrol. But we were playing with somebody that was a brand newbie and felt like I was trying to point out all the moves, and then Ben with us, he's like, hey, you're being a little strong. I'm like, sorry. So I just shut up for the next 5 rounds, took my turn. Because he was right. I was doing a little too much.
I'm the opposite, sometimes to a fault. Like when I taught my family how to play, when I taught my parents how to play, it was either Forbidden Island or Pandemic. I think it was Pandemic. My mother kept trying to cheat, and on the contrary, my dad kept showing me his hand and going, okay, what do I do? I'm not going to make... Well, here's what you're trying to accomplish based on what you got. What do you think the best idea is? Well, what do you think the best idea is? It's your decision. It's your turn.
See, and we play cards out, but we play on Legendary. So it's the hardest, rules, as far as the hardest difficulty, but then we don't play with the cards in the hand. They're out so we can go,
Talk to each other.
Talk to each other. That's how we played it, and I think we've only won once out of probably 20, 25 plays on Legendary. So as much as I'd like to say, it's a little cheating, we can't even win when we're doing a little cheating. Greg, before we get out of here, you have some social medias. Or where can people find you?
I am at Queencity Cardboard on Instagram. I do technically have a Facebook account, but I never check it, so don't check me there. I'm also on Discord. I'm QCC1985. That is QUCICI 1985. My weird attempt to turn those letters into a word.
Nice. I gotcha. And that's on Discord?
Yes.
All right. Well, Greg, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys later. Keep gaming in the 417. The 417 Gamer podcast is recorded and produced by Rick Bagwell and Andrea Smith. We want to thank Greg Pohlman for stopping by. Don't forget to hit him up on the Instagrams at Queencity Cardboard. The intro music we use, Kind, Gentle, Beautiful Person, and the outro music, Making Up for Lost Time, was created by Origami Replica. For links to that music and our show notes, head over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Hobby Gaming Network. Follow the 417 Gamers on Instagram at 417 Gamers. But until then, keep gaming in the 417.